Good evening, everyone. This is Awesomism Book Club, week number 4. I'm Terrie Curry in Denver, and I have with me this evening Fran Caproon from Tampa, Florida, and Karilyn Gomez from Santa Margarita, California. Fran, can you tell us hello? I think we just lost
she's
Fran.
gone.
Yes, she's gone. Karilyn, you give us a hello.
Hi, everyone. It's nice to be back again from sunny Santa Margarita.
Because we have snow here in Denver, so.
Yep, snow in Denver.
Wild weather.
That's
okay, well,
true.
Fran will probably be back with us in a minute, but we'll just start anyway, and I'll let Karilyn give us a brief overview of Chapter 7.
Okay, sounds great. Chapter 7, the title of it is Now, What About You? And it talks about it's shifting focus here a little bit from the children and all the energetic basics of their behavior and what autism is in terms of awesomism. And now we shift to how do parents deal with the stress of a world that doesn't really understand autism in terms of energetics and awesomism. And so that there are a lot of opinions about, especially about behavior that they don't understand. So we talk about how a parent can support themselves and take care of themselves in this whole process. Remembering too that parents and any of us who are working with kids on the spectrum in some capacity have certainly the opportunity and the role to play of educating others. So it's teaching people in public if a tantrum happens, what that behavior is all about, that it's not just about the superficial things. And certainly that goes on to include how working with teachers, doctors, your own family, be it parents or siblings. So basically that's what we're going to be talking about in this chapter, of how to not only support yourself, take care of yourself in this whole process, but be an educator for others, knowing that you have a significant role to play in teaching others what awesomism is, and being courageous doing it.
Yes, great. It is an important chapter. Well, Fran is back. We also have Joan Thorne from joining us. So, Fran, you want to say hello?
Hello, everyone. My signal seems very weak, so I'm not sure if you can hear me because I'm having a hard time hearing you.
Okay, I can hear you, Fran.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah,
well, I'm coming to you from outside of Tampa, Florida, and I'm looking forward to sharing the information that Susie has so wonderfully, and we can feel it and expand upon it. And we're looking, did you already discuss Chapter 7, Karilyn?
Yes, we did, yeah.
Covered Chapter 7.
Okay, because I missed the entire, I didn't have any information. So Chapter 8, Treating Autism with Pharmaceuticals, and basically it's just exactly what it says, is what the role is with these children who have high sensitivities, as well as what they can assist with, what possibilities they offer these children or not, and what other capabilities and modalities may be out there to assist them more fully.
Okay, great. Pharmaceuticals are always an interesting topic. Okay, we want to welcome Joan Thorne from New Zealand. Hello, Joan.
Hey, hi, everyone. Hey, nice to be here. And again, to be speaking about something that's near and dear to my heart. And I love the information that Chapter 7 and 8 offers us, because it's all about actually getting real. It's getting down to it. It's all about becoming more conscious of actually not only what's going on with the kids, but that the impressions that can be standards that have been set to date that these kids really don't follow very well because it upsets them. Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, well, we'll just start with chapter 7 then. Karilyn already told us a little bit about self-care, but that seems to be the big topic in this chapter, something that mothers and fathers both really need to hear, just so they have support. So, Joan, do you want to give us your information on that?
Well, I think the self-care is probably the most important element, and as mothers, we have a tendency to forget that sometimes we need to put ourselves first and to ensure that we are in a balanced state, because, oh my gosh, what a difference it can make to the energy of the children. Did we know that? I seriously know that from my experience, I remember, and it was a long time ago because my boys were born in the 80s, but I remember when one of them started school, a teacher said to me, your son says you're lying to him. And I went, really? He's probably kidding me. And he would ask me on a regular basis, especially around dinner time when everything was frenetic and I was stressed to the hilt, and really did not manage my own energy or take some deep breaths and be able to come back to, the feeling of balance. He used to say to me, "Mommy, are you okay?" And I would say, "Oh, I'm fine. I'm just..." And that wasn't the case at all. And then he would feel my energy. I get that now, having read the book. And he would know that there was an incongruence in what I was saying, and I didn't fit with him very well. And so he sensed, I still see that now, he so sensed my energy and the stress. And then, rather than just giving me space to get organized, he would play up, which just added to it. But I know now that taking care of me and coming to a sense of balance and not allowing time pressures or whatever around what I was doing, the kids, all they want to know is that I know myself how I feel, that I know that I'm stressed, and that I will do my best to balance that energy. And then, for some reason, that settles their energy too. Yeah, so it's really highly effective for us to take care of ourselves first and to be able to come into our own knowing. And therefore, it would be amazing, I think, if mothers would try it to see how it can settle the energy of the whole environment.
Yes, yes. I was in a bakery line just last week, and a woman, she must have been 90. She turned around and she said, "I have some advice for you." I realize now, right now, my motto is it's all about me, me, me. And she probably had raised children and really had a only view of it. But yeah, self-care is big. So Karilyn, the next kind of topic is significant role in teaching others. I think this is one of the most...
Can I back up just for a second before we go into that?
Yeah, sure.
I thought one of the statements that Susie made in that chapter when we're still talking about self-care that struck me was, and such a great thing to remember, is that we each have that innate ability when we set an intention to have support come to us to present in different ways. And I think when we're not taking care of ourselves, we forget that and think that we have to go out and look for things, and a lot of confusion can come in with that. And I think it's really important that we remember that we may not know in this instant exactly what to do, but when we get quiet, like Joan said, then resources come or ideas come. It's that innate ability that we have access to.
Yeah, very good point. Fran, do you want to add anything?
Well, when it comes to self-care, I think overall the overarching points for me is acknowledging where we are. Because so much time we feel the obligation outside of ourselves. And we get wrapped up in the shoulds of where we need to be, as well as all the judgments that society has placed upon us. So self-care sometimes can even be a forgotten even thought. You know, there's obligation. If you see behaviors not fitting into the norm, then you think you have to correct something. So getting in touch with just even getting there, that's the point even before self-care. You have to acknowledge where you are and why you're having this upset and the feelings of shame and guilt of why do I have a child that's behaving this way and people are looking at her and expecting me to control this paradigm and I'm at a loss. So self-care can't even come forth until you actually acknowledge where you are in all of it. And by taking that sigh and deep breath and almost like giving up, say, I need help, I can't, Calgon, take me away. Can you just come to a point of self-care?
Very good. Okay, so Karilyn, back to the whole role of being teachers, teaching people. What do you have to say about that in this chapter?
Well, I think even, you know, that's just part of the role that we have, whether we have children on the spectrum or not. We are dealing with people who don't know what anything different than what the traditional look of autism is, or what maybe they don't know anything at all. So, as part of that self-care and being balanced, we can serve to give them a different viewpoint, give them our experience, or a parent can give them an experience of a different perspective of coming from that energetic place rather than just that superficial behavior where the shoulds come in and you shouldn't be doing this and you should be doing these other things. So we have, I think it's a real significant role to play as educators.
Yeah, and just the very fact, the book bringing out that the parents are really paving the way for others seems to ease the burden a little bit, knowing that your journey will benefit others. What do you have to say about that, Joan?
I'm trying to say something. Because, you know, I used to be a facilitator in business, so it was about what I thought was teaching, you know, and telling. But, oh my gosh. Thanks to my boys and thanks to Awesomism, I realized that actually teaching is all about my behavior, how I exhibit my stress or lack of it, and how I rock around here with ease and grace versus having anxiety and being stressed is the best teacher in the whole world. It's about how I am versus what I necessarily say. It's, walking my talk is doing what Susie talks about in the book. You know, the parents of kids in the spectrum, how they are with their children is the best teacher in the whole world. It exhibits how they feel about their children. It offers, in a lot of cases, especially those that are practicing awesomism, they offer a new way, and they don't actually have to say anything. It is just in how they behave with their children. It is the most magnificent observation. You can see how a parent and child interact, especially when they have tantrums and when they're going off the rails. And in how I look at it is there's one of two choices. You can get very upset, get very embarrassed. You can, you know, get angry with your child and want them to behave, or you can be with your child and want the curiosity and understanding, and being able to work with them as they're in this commotion. You can offer soothing words. You can take deep breaths. You can be patient and calm and kind. Oh my gosh, what a difference that is as far as teaching how we are with our kids.
Yeah, great. Fran, do you have anything to add to that?
Well, overall, when I think the isolation, sometimes being alone and not asking for assistance, is to get outside of yourself and realize in order for the self-care, for any time to be a leader, sometimes one has to step back and surround themselves with good feeling people, people that have maybe struggled with the same instances or behaviors, or just someone who will support you in realizing that your child is going to behave differently, and how you can align with them will also assist you, your child, and that support, and getting out of being alone and being isolated. I think it moves you from somewhere into more of an empowered state, and right then you can change your vibrational frequency, such as, getting into meditations or getting into singing, dancing, playing for yourself, because as anyone knows, how can you take care of another if you can't take care of yourself? So the more you're in alignment with where you are, you can assist those around you. And sometimes it looks like I'm being selfish, and I think I may have heard, because I'm really having a warped signal tonight. It's kind of funny. But most of what's being said, I'm hearing kind of like Charlie Brown's teacher. So hopefully I chimed in appropriately. Judging.
I can hear you.
Yeah, I like in the chapter where she talks about the child throwing a temper tantrum, and how before you go into a store, you just really talk to the child, even if it appears they're not understanding you. I've been amazed. I've used that one, and I've been amazed. Children really do get it, and they really do understand, even if they don't even acknowledge it. They kind of feel like you're just talking to nothing. They really do. Oftentimes they get it, and it changes their behavior in the store, which I'm not sure I really thought of that when my children were small, but that was a great addition.
So, and it makes a difference too, even with any of us, when we're going from one place to another, to kind of pause before you get, like to sit in the car for a second before you go into the store. So it's certainly with children who are high vibration, that's just going to be exaggerated. So I think that's a great point to just take that time and explain what's possibly going to go on.
Yeah, because, it's interesting, Karilyn, as you say that, and Terrie, as you brought that up, because really, who is that about, though? The expectations or the behaviors, it's almost like we're telling ourselves that we're getting in touch with how this might be, so we can assist us where we are, and then we are within ourselves calm, and we're in congruency with what we're saying and feeling, which assists with our children.
Yeah, and they get it through that vibrational piece again. Well, what about standing up to the authority figures like doctors? We've talked a little bit about teachers, but this in our society can be a difficult thing, just because there's so much power given to authority figures, teachers and doctors both, in both of those professions. So when a parent feels like they're going in alone, any suggestions on things that have worked for you, or anybody can just chime in on that one?
I think there are a couple of things going on. It certainly goes back to that self-care and that being balanced, not giving your authority away to these seeming authority figures, and at the same time, both educating yourself, for instance, with doctors, what they might, if it has to do with vaccinations, educate yourself about different options for that. And also, as Fran was saying, surround yourself with people who can support you in a different point of view, so that you don't feel like you're going into it alone. And coming up against the big doctor who seemingly knows it all.
I think all in touch with that peace within you. Ultimately, at some point, you can feel when you are being pressed by a physician or by a teacher or by a principal or the one in charge of your IEP for your child in the school system. And you can feel like being pressured into something you just are not getting. You're just not feeling it. And just to even say to whomever, you know, I'm feeling a little bit pressured. I don't know if this feels right to me. I'm going to take some time and stand back and look at this. And just by even pausing that, you once again empower yourself.
I agree completely. Oh my gosh, that is so true. I think for me, way back in the 80s, I did think that the doctors knew it all. I did think that they knew, and um, and it was difficult to resist the recommendations that they had. But when I look back on it now, you know, if I hadn't been so time pressured in life, it felt like, you know, it felt like I was having to be Johnny on the spot all the time because of things that came up. And if I had done like you said, Fran, in the car and just sat and took a few minutes to prepare myself, or maybe that was you, Karilyn, and it's the same as going to the doctor. It's about giving, I believe, yourself the opportunity to know
how you do feel about the situation, because you know perhaps your child's not well, you know you're looking for some advice, but you're also knowing that, I mean, you're the best knower of what's going on with your kid. So no matter what anybody recommends, if it doesn't quite feel right, and just like you said, it's okay to say that. It's okay not to go along with it. It's okay to be brave and courageous and defend your child in these circumstances until you get a better feeling about what it's going to do or not do for your kid. And I love the idea of having support. I mean, I so wish I knew about Awesomism way back then, because that would have been my support channel. I would have been able to hook into or even pick the book up and hear what Susie had to say. I mean, seriously, wow, that would have been so cool, for sure.
Right, because it applies to it applies to relationships, period. Whether it's a relationship with your doctor, your teacher, your brother, your sister, your spouse. Ultimately, it applies to every relationship that you have, is being incongruent with how you feel, being able to express how you feel and with it, and just empowering yourself not to be misled by someone else's beliefs, thoughts, paradigms, or their limited knowing. Because a doctor's focus is basically medication. They look at fixing a disease, and autism is not a disease. It's a sensitivity of vibrational frequencies. So how can you give a medication? All you're doing is dumbing them down. And yes, you may get some temporary relief, but overall, it's not providing any solution except for maybe a temporary Band-Aid.
Yes, and this really basically leads us right into Chapter 8, speaking of the doctors. And the first thing Susie says is, you know, the whole adage about trust your doctor. She hopes that that's the first question we ask, that you live with the question about not just immediately trusting the doctor, but really doing some homework around it. But this is really about a whole very strong paradigm that we live in today, both with medicine and education. So it's, you know, from my viewpoint, it's really about a shift in each individual taking responsibility and starting to really know within themselves what's right for them, what's right for their child. And this is a really big switch. This is going to change our whole role in society. So from that point, parents can know they really are not alone. This is across the board something everyone needs to face, whether you have an elderly parent or someone in the hospital, all of these things, if we know we have choice, it gives us a lot more possibilities, and we're not so forced to rely on medicines and pharmaceuticals. So, so what are some of the negatives you'd see about pharmaceuticals, either Fran or Joan? We lost Karilyn for the moment, but she'll probably be back.
Well, I'm going to step in because this is an area that that I have played with quite a bit. In that, physicians learn everything that they plan on learning within the medical school, but once they get out post their education, they are no longer in that receiving end, except for sound bites from, say, from pharmaceuticals. So it appears that there is a problem, and pharmaceuticals are here to fix it. So that seems like how it works. They show up, a patient shows up with a problem, and here is a pill or a drug that will assist. So it's been this game playing of understanding, and it's almost an expectation now. So I know there was an area some time ago, even in the antibiotic world, where at one point everybody was being handed antibiotics, and the patient would leave and, oh, I'm going to be well tomorrow or the next day because they got their medicine. But what happens is it created some kind of rampant resistant strains of bacteria. So an overuse of something. So when a patient shows up now and does not get that medicine, they leave disgruntled. I'm not getting something because where's that magic pill to fix me? So that has been like this underlying theme within the medical community and with the pharmaceuticals. And when we look at sensitivities within children, as we introduce medications to these children and their biologies are not quite understood, that we just exacerbate conditions rather than provide any kind of temporary solution. So it can be confounded. And I know one thing Susie does recommend highly is that if your children is on any form of medication, please don't stop without assistance, because there can be side effects for anything that you take. So just to be aware that within the medical communities, don't ever stop medications without having assistance from that, because withdrawals can occur and all kinds of things can run rampant within the body.
Yeah, and I know she does say too how one of the big reasons people use pharmaceuticals for children is so that the child will appear normal or have more normal behavior. And so this again is a shift in everyone's thinking, so that our whole idea of normal changes. And I think she gives the example of ADD and ADHD. And I know from experience working with the kids, what I see is when they aren't taking medicine, they're extremely bored. These kids are brilliant. The ones I've worked with were extremely brilliant. And the quote problem was that they would not sit at a computer and finish a standardized test in order to prove that they were brilliant, even though the teachers, the whole school might know this child was brilliant and did not want to sit there. That's the last thing the child wanted to do. But if you can give them something to make them numb out so that they can sit in front of a computer and, get through a standardized exam, this is considered normal behavior. Karilyn trying to get back in. Anyway, that's considered normal behavior. So I think that goes along with all of this whole idea with medicine. So, Joan, do you have anything to add?
Well, I think part of the problem is that there is so much unknown with the kids and their sensitivities, those children that are diagnosed with autism. There is so much unknown about the vibrational or frequency or energy that causes the upsets. And because of that, there's no it's not like you can just recommend a pill. Oh, you know what? I'm really sorry, but that's my brother trying to ring me. I don't know what to. Anyway, so because the kids aren't, like Amber Black said, cookie cutter, there's nothing standard about their reasons, their frequency, their vibration, and the energy they sense that gives them this so-called abnormal behavior, or this disorder is not identified at the core of what it is. We're trying to put a band-aid on the tantrums or the inability to focus and sit at a computer, as you've said, Terrie. And really, that doesn't do the child absolutely any good, because we're not absolutely being able to hone in on what is going on with their systems that cause this behavior. So, putting a band-aid on them and attempting to find a solution, and oftentimes it's experimental anyway. So the kids are put through a series of types of medication or so-called solutions until something happens whereby they calm down, so-called calm down. But in fact, unfortunately, what it's doing is it's dumbing them down, and we're losing so much of this very high quality wisdom and intelligence because we actually don't understand the core reason for why it's happening, or the medical profession or the educational profession possibly does not understand really what's going on.
Right, and Susie's careful not to talk about conspiracy or anything, but she does bring out the fact that the pharmaceutical companies are making, big profits off of immunizations, and the very fact of, diagnosing autism and treating it as a disease. And it's just one thing after another, because then if the kids have been on drugs for a long time and their side effects, there will be a whole nother round. She points out there'll be another round of treating all of these symptoms that have now been created by really making the system of these kids totally in a state of chaos from the standpoint of biochemistry. So, so this is Fran. Do you want to comment on that? I know you have.
I play in that world a little bit. Well, yeah. Absolutely. There is. I know that I have overheard talkings about, oh, if we could get our hands on that next drug to cure autism, because as the statistics keep increasing, like what was discussed last, 1 in 68 8-year-olds are considered on the spectrum. That is, if you think about it, you could add up some numbers and say, wow, we could do some great business there when it comes to providing a solution. But little do we know that the gift of these children in the community, that is, we know the gifts of these children, but within the community, the awareness is to bring forth, as we become more aligned with how we're feeling and offering our true feelings and congruencies, it will allow these children to become more comfortable and balanced in their environment. And so really the drugs wouldn't be needed. They would be needed for the parents who are frustrated so much that they don't have support and they want a break from this behavior. But overall, if you become congruent, then these children's gifts can come through and they can be can flow through them. It just looks different than what we're used to, because we're moving in, as you mentioned, Joan, into a new normal. Mm-hmm. So these kids are going to become the new normal, and neurotypicals are going to probably slide back a little bit as abnormal.
Good one.
So it's just I feel like there is a movement. So from the support of pharmaceuticals, they can be used, and I'm sure there are places to try them in order for a family to come in upon themselves to maybe get that break for a short time until they can become balanced for themselves, empower themselves so they can start making these informed decisions between the family rather than out the judgment, so they can move forward. And then some of those medications would not be necessary, and seeking out instead of in the allopathic traditional medicine, and move more into vibrational medicine and those that support the family and the child, and getting into some of the diets and changing some of that which can cause behaviors as well, because if they're over toxic, not even be related to or they can be related to toxicity is what I meant to say, rather than behavior with attached to emotions. There's a very complicated, but not so complicated piece of interconnectedness with all of it.
Yes, and she in the book she does mention how it's just painful to see how addicted our society is to the whole medical model and to prescription drugs. And at some point, you know, in this discussion, she mentions the whole idea of agreeing to disagree if you know if people have varying points of view. So so anyway, as far as suggestions, she just makes suggestions on shifting away from pharmaceuticals, and she talks about, we've talked about some of these. She talks about just weaning a child off of the drugs, not like Fran said, going cold turkey, and then looking into alternative medicine, talking around getting support for other ways of dealing with it. A diet, there's some great stuff out there on diet, and then also you just mentioned vibrational medicine. So Joan or Fran, either one, do you want to speak about any of those specifically? Do you have any?
Well, I find, Terry, that diet has a way larger influence on these kids than it might have a long time ago, for lots of reasons, because our foods have changed. A lot of them have been modified, and therefore they're not as pure as they were. And consequently, the children have changed also, because they are more sensitive than they were many, many years ago. So the combination of the two requires a different attention. And diet and foods, especially those that have preservatives or that have chemical injections in them, cause upset to some of these highly sensitive children. And therefore, it's highly, I think parents that know this can be so much more conscious and watch and be aware of what happens when the child ingested a can of Coke, for example, and they can see the behavior or the internal struggle that the child is having in because they're so upset. Their systems are upset. Their temperament is upset. Everything becomes highly affected, and therefore, yeah, it is really, really important to be conscious of diet and how foods interact with with your child. I totally agree. Jackie McMillan is a wonderful resource for knowing and becoming aware of what foods can do to highly sensitive children, and also what alternatives there can be, so that you can still be able to provide your kids with healthy foods. You know, yes.
Yes, I know that whole area could lead a parent, and does lead parents into, if they so choose or whatever, to lead it into a guilt-ridden kind of thing, like, oh, I'm not doing this right, or I'm not doing that right. But again, it's not meant, all these suggestions are really not meant to induce any kind of should or guilt. It's just a way of mentioning these things so you have more possibilities, more choices, and more options for dealing with any situation. And
Carrie, can I just say that diet and everything else these kids are going through is an opportunity. Like, they're offering parents such a wonderful opportunity to become more conscious, to become more aware, and to look at what different things might tip their child over, but also to maybe become more aware of what is in foods for all of the family, and what might benefit and not. I mean, no, there's absolutely no reason to take on board a guilt about, I've given my kids the wrong kind of food or whatever. It's just an indicator. It's offering us an opportunity to make a change or to be different about how we are in our selection and choice of foods. I mean, it's wonderful that the children are offering us this opportunity. It isn't about, I mean, we're just going through such a huge evolution, and the kids are helping us, believe it or not.
Yeah. Let's go on an adventure and explore our foods.
Yeah.
Let's make a little diary and let's see, when little Johnny eats a donut, what kind of behaviors are evoked? And it's just more like an adventure rather than, I'm doing it wrong. And just pick one thing at a time and observe it for a week, and then pick something else. It doesn't have to be, let's take on the world right now in this moment. It's, you can take little baby steps and move through it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, the kids are just helping us with the process of becoming more aware of everything that goes on in our environment, for sure. Absolutely. By their sensitivities. And the other thing I might mention is that you can't look at one child and think that, well, they can eat this, so that my child should be able to eat that too. Oh, I'm afraid not. All kids have a different or possibly have, a different system, and their organs are working differently. Their internal being is not necessarily the same as, their friends. So it doesn't mean that what you do for one is carte blanche for everybody.
Right. Everyone's their own unique expression. So
Yes.
Exactly what you said, because even what would work for me wouldn't work for you, and we're on the spectrum in a different form, but but it's true, absolutely. And that's when we hone our own internal skills and your collaborative, co-creative uncovering with your child or your who you are working with on the spectrum. It is this collaborative of awakening together.
Exactly.
Yes.
Like I think I mentioned last time about the friend I have who has two children, twins. One was they were both immunized. One, she is absolutely categorically has that intuitive feeling that it tipped the son over, and the daughter wasn't as affected. I mean, really, you to be cautious about putting chemicals into a child's body is really a good idea, because you just never know. And there isn't anything that can be a standard prescribed way of identifying that, really.
Yeah, so true. So, yeah, being present, staying curious, and
Yeah.
really all of us learning to know ourselves, know our children, is where it's moving. You said, Joan, big evolution. So, any topics that either one of you want to discuss? Because my points for chapter 7 and 8 are done here. So, but if you have anything else you want to bring up, then now's your time. Joan, Fran?
Overall, I think it's being more comfortable being the parent, being the caregiver, being the practitioner working with the child, and honing your observational skills and where you are, being present with who you are, and saying what you mean and meaning what you're saying. Just being in an alignment and in congruency with yourself. That awareness in itself can speak beyond words. So it seems as we all own our piece, the other pieces will fall into place. And getting support when you're feeling frustrated or alone or lost is one of the major factors to create that balance, so you can support someone other than yourself. You can move outside of yourself and be there.
Great. How about you, Joan? Any last words?
I love the fact, and I have to keep reminding myself that my sons chose me to be their, and that I understand that these wise young men, and who often offer me such incredible, profound knowledge or comments around situations, that I have that too, because that's what makes parents so special of these kids, these highly sensitive kids. Doesn't matter whether of what arena they might be on the spectrum, they choose parents that are aligned with their energy at the end of the day, or at the higher sensitivities that they are. So, really, nothing to be worried about. We're on the right track. The more inquisitive, like Fran said, the more we investigate and want to know them better, we'll get to know ourselves better too.
Yeah, that's a great reminder that they always choose the parents, and they choose us. Okay, well, that finishes our week 4, and we have one more week. Week 5 is next Monday, May 19th at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, and we'll cover the final chapters 9 and 10. So thank you for being with us this evening, and hope to see you next week.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.